London, a city of art, love, and hidden darkness. In 2025, this city became the stage for one of the most chilling double murders the UK had seen in years. Two kind-hearted men, Alfonso and Paul Longworth, were found brutally murdered, their deaths leaving behind a trail of blood, mystery, and betrayal. The story began inside a quiet apartment in Shepherd's Bush, a place that once echoed with laughter and music, but would soon be filled with silence, fear, and the smell of death. That night, neighbors heard nothing unusual, no screams, no cries, only the soft hum of the city beyond their walls. But behind that locked door, an unimaginable horror was unfolding. The killer, a man both charming and cold, had already chosen his victims. It wasn't random. It was planned, calculated, and carried out with a precision that sent chills down every investigator's spine. The truth, when uncovered, revealed not just a murderer, but a manipulator who wore the mask of friendship. This is the haunting story of how love and trust turned deadly, how two innocent lives were destroyed in a moment of madness, and how justice finally caught up with the man who thought he could outsmart death itself. So sit back and stay with me till the end, because the truth you're about to hear is far darker than fiction. The apartment at Shepherd's Bush looked perfectly ordinary from the outside. Brick walls, small balcony, warm lights glowing through the curtains. No one could imagine that inside. Two lives had already been stolen. When police first arrived, they thought it was a simple missing persons call. But the moment they stepped inside, a wave of silence and staleness hit them like a physical force. The air smelled faintly of bleach. On the living room floor, blood had dried into the fibers of the carpet, and a coffee mug still sat on the table, half-filled, untouched, frozen in time. Forensic lights revealed smudges of blood along the wall, faint fingerprints leading toward the bedroom. It wasn't chaos, and it was methodical. Whoever had done this knew exactly what they were doing. Every object, every trace told the same story. A night that started in calm conversation and ended in unimaginable violence. But the strange part? There were no signs of forced entry. Whoever killed Albert and Paul, they had let him in, and that's what scared detectives the most. This wasn't the act of a stranger. This was betrayal from within. Someone they knew, someone they trusted, had turned their home into a slaughterhouse. And as the investigation began, a name started to emerge from the whispers. A man who called himself an artist, a friend, and eventually, a killer. Albert Alfonso was a man full of life, young, stylish, full of dreams. He worked in London's creative circuit, loved painting, and was known for his warm smile. His partner, Paul Longworth, was older, wiser, the kind of man who loved quiet evenings and deep conversations. Together they balanced each other perfectly, Albert's energy meeting Paul's calm. Friends described them as inseparable, their laughter a familiar sound in the neighborhood cafe where they spent weekends. But behind every smile, there are secrets the world never sees. Albert had recently been working with a new artist, a mysterious man named Mosquera. He was intense, magnetic, and unpredictable. People who met him said he had a strange charm, the kind that makes you feel like you've known him forever, and yet never truly at all. Albert admired his passion. Paul, on the other hand, didn't trust him. He once told a friend, "There's something dark behind his eyes. That darkness would soon show itself." What began as a friendship turned into something sinister. Jealousy, obsession, and control slowly began to poison the bond. And one night, when emotions boiled over, Mosquera's charm vanished, replaced by a monster who wanted possession, not love. In the weeks leading up to the murder, subtle signs of danger began to surface. Albert started becoming distant, his once bubbly nature shadowed by unease. Paul noticed changes, the late-night messages, the anxious glances toward the window. But love makes people blind, and Albert believed he could handle it. He thought Mosquera just needed help, that his anger came from pain. But obsession never heals. It consumes. On the night of the murder, the three of them shared dinner in that very apartment. Wine, music, laughter, the calm before the storm. As the evening stretched, tension thickened. Words turned sharp, accusations flew. Paul tried to leave, but Mosquera blocked the door. And then, silence. Minutes later, that silence broke with violence so sudden, so brutal, that even experienced detectives later said it haunted their dreams. When it was over, Mosquera stood in the middle of the room, breathing heavily, staring at what he had done. Two bodies lay lifeless before him, the people who had trusted him the most. But instead of guilt, he felt only control. That's when he began to clean, erasing fingerprints, washing away blood as if trying to rewrite reality itself. For days, Albert and Paul's phones went silent. Friends grew worried. Their social media stopped, their messages unanswered. One of their close friends finally called the police, reporting them missing. The officers arrived, expecting a routine welfare check, but what they found was straight out of a nightmare. Blood spatter analysis revealed a struggle. Drag marks on the floor hinted at movement. Someone had tried to move the bodies. But to where? The investigation widened. Security footage showed a man leaving the building late at night, carrying what looked like large bags. The footage was grainy, but the police recognized the shape, the walk. It was Mosquera. When they raided his apartment days later, they found chilling evidence, sketches of Albert and Paul, painted with dark red strokes, their eyes blacked out. Each canvas seemed to whisper the same message: ownership. Detectives described it as one of the most psychologically disturbing crime scenes they had ever seen. This wasn't just murder, and it was art to him. A sick creation of control and destruction. The trail led police miles away from London, to the edge of Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. There, under the foggy dawn sky, divers found something that made even the toughest officers step back. Wrapped in layers of fabric and sealed with tape lay the remains of Albert Alfonso. A week later, Paul's body was discovered in a wooded area nearby. Both had been disposed of with cold precision. When Mosquera was arrested, he smiled. He told detectives he didn't kill them. He set them free. Those words echoed in the interrogation room, chilling everyone who heard them. His calm tone, his lack of remorse, his eerie confidence. It was as if he saw himself as an artist and the murders, his masterpiece. But as the evidence mounted, fingerprints, fibers, and the damning CCTV, his fantasy of genius collapsed under the weight of truth. The courtroom would soon become his final stage. But for Albert and Paul, justice was already whispering in the wind. A promise that their voices would not be silenced forever. The trial was brutal. Prosecutors described every detail: the manipulation, the jealousy, the final night. Photos of the crime scene left the courtroom in tears. Mosquera showed no emotion. Sometimes he smiled faintly as if enjoying the attention. The judge called him a danger to humanity, a man whose vanity turned to violence. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty of double murder. The families of Albert and Paul broke down as the sentence was read. The gallery erupted in quiet sobs, but among the grief was relief. Justice, however delayed, had been delivered. Mosquera was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. For the first time, the predator was trapped. His world of control ended behind cold steel bars. But even in prison, whispers spread. He started painting again. Faces without eyes, figures without names. It was as if he was still haunted by the ghosts of the people he killed, or perhaps still trying to control them from beyond the grave. Outside the courtroom, the world mourned. Tributes flooded social media. Artists painted murals of Albert and Paul, two souls who had loved deeply and died tragically. Their story became a symbol of awareness. A reminder of how dangerous obsession can become when disguised as love. News outlets called it the artist's double murder, but those who truly knew the victims refused to let their memory be defined by tragedy. Friends spoke of Albert's laughter, Paul's warmth, their generosity, their light. They were not victims. They were people who had given everything to the world. That's how they would be remembered. Their death sparked new discussions about emotional abuse, manipulation, and the unseen darkness that hides behind charming smiles. In a way, their story saved others. Organizations began educating people about recognizing early signs of toxic control, because sometimes danger doesn't come with a knife in the dark. It comes with a smile. Months passed. The apartment in Shepherd's Bush remained sealed, a haunting relic of a story that changed lives forever. Those who lived nearby said they still felt uneasy walking past it at night. Some swore they could hear faint sounds, and a creak, a whisper, a sigh. Maybe it was imagination, or maybe it was the weight of what had happened there. Detectives who worked the case said they could never forget it. It wasn't just the brutality, one said. It was how human it all felt. Love turned into possession. Care turned into control, and that's the real horror. The statement stayed with people, echoing in documentaries and true crime shows for years to come. And yet, amid all the darkness, there was a strange kind of peace. Albert and Paul's families planted trees in their memory, symbols of life that no murderer could ever take away. On the first anniversary of their deaths, hundreds gathered near the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Candles lined the walkway, flickering in the cold breeze. Photos of Albert and Paul smiled back from the glow of candlelight. Friends, strangers, and even the detectives stood side by side, united in silence. The sound of the river below seemed to whisper their names. A single message hung from the bridge. Love always wins. And in that moment, it did. The killer might have stolen their lives, but not their legacy. Their love became light, a beacon for everyone who had ever lost someone to cruelty, reminding them that kindness always leaves a mark deeper than hate. That night, as the city lights shimmered, it felt as if London itself was mourning and healing. Years will pass, but the story of Albert and Paul will never fade. Their names are now spoken with reverence, not as victims, but as voices of awareness. Their tragedy taught the world that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they sit beside us, smiling, waiting. But it also proved that justice, no matter how delayed, always finds its way. As for Mosquera, he remains locked away, his paintings collecting dust in the prison's art room. Silent, empty, lifeless. A once proud artist, now forgotten. But outside those walls, Albert and Paul live on. In art and love, in every soul who refuses to let darkness win. If this story moved you, take a moment to honor them, and ask yourself, what drives a person to destroy what they claim to love? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story, because the world should never forget what happened inside that quiet London apartment. Until next time, stay aware, stay kind, and stay safe.